Tomorrow I will be moving an amendment. I have no doubt it's the amendment where the Minister has been trying to call me about 20 minutes ago and I've decided to use my disconnect. That's what I'm doing. So, yeah, like that, my right to disconnect. That's correct. So there you go, Minister. Okay. So tomorrow I will be moving an amendment to enable the manufacturing division of the CFMEU, which includes the textile, clothing and footwear workers, timber workers and furniture workers, to hold a secret ballot to demerge from the Construction, Forestry and Maritime Employees Union, or as we all know it, the CFMEU. And I'm going to tell you why. The textile, clothing, footwear sector is currently part of the Construction, Forestry and Maritime Employees Union, or once again the CFMEU, after it did a merger with them in 2018. The textile, clothing, footwear sector is part of the CFMEU and it has one of the greatest number of women. Many of these women are from non-English speaking backgrounds and many of them have had first-hand experience of exploitation, underpayment and unsafe conditions. After the merger, the textile, clothing, footwear sector moved into the CFMEU's offices. One of the union secretaries told the Age newspaper about the first meeting with the CFMEU, and I quote, "It was a male-dominated space," she recalled. "He just went on this big rant and there was fear that if anyone tried to say anything, it would have just got a hell of a lot worse," end quote. You know who that he is, don't we all? We do know that, don't we? That he is John Secker, of course, the State Secretary of the Victorian branch of the CFMEU. You wonder why your membership's dropping. It was at this meeting that John Secker also made remarks about the Australian of the Year and domestic violence advocate, Rosie Batty. Secker told the meeting that Miss Batty's advocacy work had led to men having fewer rights. The textile, clothing, footwear sector rep said that the Batty statement came towards the end of the meeting, and I quote, "I just couldn't really believe it," she said. "I was shocked, wanting to just really get out of the room. I wanted it to finish," end quote. But the Textile, Clothing, Footwear Union had merged with the CFMEU, and that also meant sharing office space. I'm feeling your pain, ladies, I'm feeling your pain. The union rep told the paper that, and I quote, "Within the building there were jokes about domestic violence. It was very uncomfortable to the point where our division had to leave the building," end quote. After these comments were leaked to newspapers, John Secker went after his critics and hired private investigators to bug and follow them. Such a pleasant bloke, isn't he? Many quit their positions or were forced out. What a bully. Secker rules the CFMEU with an iron fist, and he likes to tell his colleagues, and I quote, "You throw a stone at me and I'll throw a mountain back. Well, the mountain's coming, big boy, I can assure you, and I'm riding on it." Once reports of Secker's comments were known, Sally McManus, Secretary of the ACTU, and Anthony Albanese, then opposition leader, called for Secker's resignation. Secker's response was typical of his bullish behaviour, and I quote, "For people to try to portray me as some misogynist pig, which you are, that bashes women is absolutely disgraceful. I ain't going to wear that. That's just absolute bull," end quote. But later in June 2019, John Secker's attitude to women, specifically to his wife, was revealed following an incident in 2018. Following this incident, Victorian Police charged Secker with 30 domestic violence charges, including recklessly causing injury and a pattern of harassment through breaching court orders and threats. Who would have guessed? The harassment included 45 texts in which he called his wife horrible names using hateful, violent language. Obviously has no respect for women, but I think we all worked out that many years ago. Secker, of course, dismissed these texts as just and I quote, "few bad text messages. Oh dear," end quote. Shortly after The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald revealed that a former Deputy President of the Fair Work Commission, Anne Gooley, gave a statement to the police alleging that Mr Setka repeatedly intimidated and terrified his wife over several months. In her police statement, Anne Gooley said that she had witnessed Mr Setka's treatment of his wife and that, and I quote, "Seeing John's anger, I was extremely distressed," end quote. A few weeks before Christmas in 2018, Setka's estranged wife took out an intervention order against him. In sworn statements, she accused Setka of a pattern of violence and a campaign of harassment, and she feared she was under surveillance, including at home. On the day she got the intervention order, she put a safety device under her front door to stop Setka getting in. Anne Gooley in her statement said, and I quote, "When John arrived back at the house, he broke the door in while I was sitting in the front room of the house. I yelled out to, and she, Setka's estranged wife, ran into the downstairs bathroom and locked herself in," end quote. In late August 2019, Setka's estranged wife provided a new sworn statement to police, and I quote, "We started having a verbal argument and it was getting very heated and aggressive. John was out of control. He hit my head against the table about 5 times. It was very painful. John is a lot bigger and stronger than me, and he can totally physically control me. When he loses his temper, there isn't anything I can do but submit to him," end quote. A journalist contacted Anne Gooley about the incident, and in her email response, she described Setka's conduct, and I quote, John's behaviour was not simply a few abusive emails or text messages," she wrote. "His conduct drove my friend out of her home and at one time out of the state. I was not surprised that John did not stand down or that he targeted those who did not support him, as I never believed that he had any real insight into his behaviour. It was always someone else's fault, or he downplayed his conduct," end quote. Anne Gooley had sat on the Fair Work Commission full bench that dealt with the ACTU's claim for paid family violence leave, a world-leading entitlement. She said the union movement had made significant progress on the issue of domestic violence, but was concerned about what message was being set by Setka and his supporters. Yeah, he's not alone. Welcome to the top of the CFMEU. Nothing's changed. I quote what she also said, "My concern about their support for John is the message this sends to those in the movement who experience family violence, that their experiences will not be believed," she wrote. "It also tells those in the movement who are perpetrators of family violence that their conduct will be condoned," end quote. So let's review. Let's take a review of what I've said. We have a union with thousands of women, many of them from non-English speaking backgrounds. They want to be able to have a secret ballot to leave the CFMEU, and who could blame them, and take control themselves. That's what they want. That's what they want. Who in here could in all conscience vote against these women? I would like all of the senators in here to go home and think about that deeply this evening. If your party is telling you to vote against this amendment, I want you to think about how you will feel about betraying these women. All the passionate speeches that I've heard in this place about domestic violence, all the speeches about how women should be empowered to take control of their lives. Did you mean them? Will you stand by your words for these women? Will you stand by your principles for these women? Will you stand up for these women? These women want to be demerged, and I don't want to hear any rubbish tomorrow. I'm putting that amendment up, and God forbid, after everything that has gone on in the last 3 or 4 years up here, if you don't stand up for these women, that goes for that side over there, the government and the Greens, Your credibility will go down the drain just like that tomorrow. So I'm putting it to you. I'm coming for that amendment and I want to support it. For these women, give them the freedom that they want. Give them the freedom from John Secker. God, we owe them that much.